Here, joined by Tobi Duncan, vocalist of the alternative and pop punk act Trash Boat from the UK, as you can tell. That new album, or their new album, Heaven Can Wait, comes out October 4th on Hopeless Records. You can listen to some of the singles, including a feature with Eric of I Prevail, by clicking on the link in the description or just searching up Trash Boat on whatever streaming service you use. To start, you guys have underwent many different eras or sound changes or whatever you want to call it. Can you kind of explain the new Trash Boat sound, influences on the new album, especially compared to previous records? Like you used to be much more, I guess, like straight up melodic hardcore pop punk back in like the whatever album has Strangers on it. That's like the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
one I'm most familiar with, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, we get asked this question all the time, and we have a lot of fans, or perhaps former fans, that are extremely upset with the fact that our sound has evolved. And I totally understand. I totally understand. I was part of the generation that watched Bring Me the Horizon completely change the way that they make music. Multiple other bands did very, very similar things, and there was always a part of me that was upset, always part of me that was upset because you fall in love with the effect that an album has on you, and you fall in love with like that sound and that style, and there's a part of you that always wants the band to keep recreating that feeling, and some bands will do that. And honestly, I don't see one as objectively better than the other. You know, there's loads of bands that have been extremely consistent with their sound, and it's awesome. Knocked Loose, one of my favorite bands going right now. You know exactly what you're going to get with a Knocked Loose record. It's going to be the angriest, heaviest thing you've ever heard. I'd be very surprised if Knocked Loose sort of like switched it up. A Day to Remember, another one. A Day to Remember, like I was going to get an A Day to Remember tattoo when I was like 18. Love
Mhm.
that band. Like from their first like four albums, I could probably recite every lyric, and their albums were extremely consistent.
Yeah.
We never made a conscious choice to step away from anything because we never considered ourselves anything, which is hard for people to accept because, yeah, our first two EPs were pretty pop punky. We were listening to a lot of pop punk at the time as a band, and it just sort of like coalesced in our writing. And then, like, the first album had Dan Campbell featuring on it, and it was a bit heavier, it was a bit faster. It always included like a wide array of influences, which is kind of what made us unique because a lot of people consider us a pop punk band, but we were always like the heavy pop punk band. We were always that pop punk band that was not quite a pop punk band. And then as we got onto Crown Shyness, it was sort of getting even heavier and even riffier, but it still was kind of more in keeping with the previous album in terms of consistency. And then like we'd put out four records, two full lengths, and while we were writing Don't You Feel Amazing, our previous album, the only thought process behind it was that we were sharing riffs. And I've thought about this a lot because we do get a lot of like, negative comments saying like, oh, your best era was back then. Like, we don't like your new music. It's like, fair enough. Honestly, like, that's absolutely fine. Um, the only major difference really is the pace of the record. Like we used to do a lot of fast beat, like that kind of or like choruses that would go like dun, which is very, very pop punk. And when we were sharing riffs for the new record, we had a lot of those. And we would just kind of like, and we had also a lot of the riffs that ended up on the album. And as a group, we didn't say we should switch this up because we want to switch up genre because we're bored of pop punk. We were all just like, we like those. I like those riffs, the kind of groovier, slightly slower riffs. All of the kind of influences are very similar. All of my lyrical writing style is similar. And like when you really listen to it sonically and lyrically and sort of vibe wise with the exact same band, it's just the riffs are kind of just slower and groovier, and there's no like really scatty fast beat and stuff like that, which for some people is it completely changes the tone of the record, and I kind of agree. But yeah, I think a lot of people feel like slighted, like we are trying to get away from pop punk because we'd grown out of it or something silly like that. But it was literally just we were writing riffs for the record, and those are the ones that we gravitated towards at the time. And I think that, the disingenuous thing would have been like, well, we really like these riffs, but we should probably just stick to writing riffs that like we know will hit because we've had success with these previous two albums. So like we should ignore these things that we want to write and we should just stick to what we know because blah blah blah. And yeah, for me personally, that wouldn't have been the righteous choice. Like we just did what we want to do, and I totally get that some people who sort of they love the sound, not the band. They will live vicariously through our old albums and sort of live in the nostalgia age. And the thing is, those albums still exist. When we do headline sets, we play stuff from those albums all the time. But yeah, now we're sort of rocking in this Be Someone, Heaven Can Wait. Be Someone has fast beat in it too.
Yeah,
Like it's
yeah.
a pretty fast song, but it is more, I guess, akin to that kind of Bring Me the Horizon, like very heavy rock style. And yeah, that's how it happened. It wasn't a decision that happened in a single moment. It was just like the process, and it's just how we've been rocking it. And I have no idea what the next album's going to sound like. Like all of our albums have kind of sounded like a little bit different. And some people don't like that. They want consistency. They want something that they can hold on to and they can feel like they're getting the same or similar things with every album. But that's not us, I'm afraid.
Yeah,
Sorry.
for sure. And don't think I was trying to knock your guys' sound. I love the singles and I love the last album. So
It's all good. It's all
yeah,
good.
I,
I don't judge anyone that has that opinion. It's
yeah,
absolutely fine.
and I do love when bands change their sound. I mean, there's certain bands where it's like I'm not going to name names or anything, but there's certain bands where it's like I'm whatever on their sound change, but I would rather listen to a band who changes their sound like constantly or over a you know rather than a band that sounds the exact same through all of their discography, through all of their albums.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. We,
yeah,
we we never really saw it as a change of sound.
yeah,
I think we more felt it as like a change of pace because
okay,
like
yeah,
we reserve our right to go back to playing really fast songs. Maybe we will. Like it's one of those things where we're writing riffs. We're always writing stuff, and whatever we like, and what we liked was what came out. And other people, we gained a whole bunch of new fans from these last two records, and those fans like they listen to our old stuff and they're like, oh, I way prefer the new stuff because that's how they got introduced. And there's loads of people that listen to our old stuff and they don't like the new stuff because it's not similar enough to the stuff that we used to put out. It's what it is.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And while we're kind of on this question, would you consider the new album a continuation of the last era, or would you consider it a whole new era?
I think there's one era really, and I guess instrumentally, it's an evolution of previous eras. But like when I'm thinking about eras and what the album represents, obviously as a vocalist, I'm thinking of the lyrics.
Okay.
And lyrically, of course, it's a new era. Like every year of my life is a new era, and those new eras can be significant or insignificant. It depends what I've been doing. It depends what I've been through. It depends on the experiences that I have. I've been through a lot. I've had many positive and many negative experiences. Loads of them have been unique and intense enough to elicit like great content for songwriting. So yeah, I guess I don't see it as a new era in the sense that I'm like a completely different person and that's worth shouting about. But then at the same time, I guess I totally do because it's just a continuation of my life. That's what I tell. I tell the story of my life in my lyrics. And whether you define an era as a month, a year, a decade, like at some point, I guess you have to say this is a new era, but like it's also just one continuous era that just continues to evolve as I do. So there's lots of new things, which means the answer is yes, it is a new era. But there's lots of things that are the same and that are consistent. So no, it's not a new era. It's kind of a yes and no answer to the question.
Cool. That's fair. I like that. So again, this is going back to something you kind of answered before, but what was the production and writing process like for this album, and was it different from any of your other albums?
The writing process wasn't different. The production process was very different. We didn't go to a studio for this record.
Mhm.
So usually what we do is we write, and we always write in the same way. We're sending each other riffs in our own houses, and we're building on those riffs in our own time, and then we meet together to sort of put all the pieces together, track it, and then we sort of take it in and we go back to our own houses. We listen to it. We each come up with our own ideas of how to improve it. We meet, we improve it, and then usually we go into so we book studio time. We're like, okay, these are ready for like pre-production. We're ready to go into the studio. Let's book a studio and let's get in there, which is what we did for our first 5 records. And then this one, we just did it all at home. So there was no studio time. There was no, we're going to be in the studio. We have to get this done within 2 weeks, a month, 6 weeks, whatever. We recorded it all in Oakley's bedroom and Ryan's bedroom, and then we just sent it off to be mixed. And it was honestly, I think that's how we're going to do it from now on. I do like the studio. There's loads of things that are awesome about the studio, particularly if you have like a really sick engineer who knows the studio really well. They can whip out like some cool effects. Like when we were in the studio for Don't You Feel Amazing, they had like this warehouse just full of crazy gear and pedals and microphones and stuff that we could just dip into whenever we want, and it elicited some really crazy sounds. And yes, that is a sacrifice you have to make when you do it at home. You know, you lack that engineer and all that cool equipment, but the benefits kind of far outweigh it. You're not time constricted. You don't have to squeeze everything into a few weeks. You can do everything completely at your own pace. And yeah, like it's nice to be able to do it over sort of like a slightly longer time frame without having to, you know, I've got to make sure that I track 3 songs today and that they're absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm having a bad vocal day, I can just come back another day. And it did take we did take a little bit too long with this album. I will say that we were a little bit lazy, but you know, we're all rocking jobs at the same time. You know, we're all employed as well as being in Trash Boat.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that, like, if you have a job, because I'm in a band as well, and we record at home. If you guys all have jobs, it's like hard to, you know, find time to do studio time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We all. I mean, I'm currently self-employed,
yeah,
but at the time of doing Don't You Feel Amazing, I was employed by a recruitment company. I used to work in automation. Ryan owns his own guitar shop. Oakley works as like a videographer and video editor. James does the same thing, but he also used to be like a barber full time.
yeah,
We literally all have jobs because we're a big band relative
yeah,
to most of the bands that are out there. We are a big band, but we ain't that big.
yeah.
You know, we're not so big that we can just do nothing and live off of the rep schedules of everything that we've made. Unfortunately, maybe one day, you know. But yeah, we all need jobs, so time management is a big factor.
Yeah, absolutely. Which tracks did you guys have the most fun writing? And yeah, which tracks?
You know what? All of them had their own degrees of fun. Be Someone was great because I knew from the off that was going to be one of the Be Someone and Filthy Righteous were I knew they were going to be like the 2 main singles for the album. And Be Someone was originally called Batman because in the pre-chorus, it goes like da 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 da, which sounds like that Tim Burton Batman soundtrack. Where it's
Mhm.
like da 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 da. So that song was called Batman for ages, and every time I listened to it, I couldn't get that Batman soundtrack out of my head. It was so funny.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I mean, Filthy Righteous hasn't come out yet. That's the one featuring Kenta from
Yeah,
Crossfaith.
yeah,
That's just it's so cool. It's so cool. It's a proper like Linkin Parky, like old new metal type banger. And yeah, a lot of fun writing that. I think the kind of dark horse answer to that is going to be a song called The Drip, because accidentally, lyrically, I think those are some of the best lyrics that I've ever written. And you'll have to wait for the album to come out to listen to
yeah,
that song because it's not a single. But yeah, when you listen to that song, get the lyrics up because they just poured out of me. It was so sick, and I think they go together so well. And it didn't make it as a single because there were just others that the band voted on.
yeah.
But I'm very proud of myself, and I had a lot of fun writing that song. But yeah, if there wasn't a song on this record that isn't without like a little a little funny story. Unfortunately, there isn't one huge one that is like the best story ever, but each song has its own little vibe.
Cool. How did the I Prevail and Crossfaith collabs come to be?
The Crossfaith collab is the slightly less interesting story. In that I literally just reached out to Kenta and asked, and he was like, "Send me the song," and then he listened to it and he was like, "Hell yeah, that rocks! I'll do it." And I was like, "Awesome." The process of that was great though, because like he wrote his part, and I was like, "Dude, if you want to just like rip this verse in Japanese or like whatever you want to do, just go ham. Like, don't feel like you have to." Do anything to conform with like the vibe, like the weirder the better, crush it. And he was like, no, I want to do it in English, and I was like, okay, cool. And then once he wrote the part, he sent it to me, and he was like, can you like grammar check this and make sure that it's correct? And I was like, yeah, no problem. And it wasn't perfect, and we had all these discussions about like how I would write this section and how I would sort of like grammatically make sense. And it was just cool because I could like see what he wanted to write and what he wanted to say, but it didn't quite make sense. And I was like, there, you could maybe change it to that. And he's just Kent is one of like the nicest dudes on the planet. He's so awesome. Like any festival that you're playing, I remember like the first time we met, we were playing like some festival in Europe. I can't remember. I think it was Jera on Air, and he's just walking around the green rooms, just like introducing himself to everyone, being friendly with everyone. And yeah, he did the same thing with us, and we ended up hanging out for a large portion of that festival. And then yeah, asked him, and he said yes. The Eric one is a combination of many things. I mean, his wife was a fan. That's how we got the tour originally, because his wife just liked our music, and then she was like, "Oh, you should listen to this band." And he listened and was like, "Oh, these guys are sick." And then they invited us out onto the Europe UK tour, which was one of the best tours we've ever done. And same vibe as Kenta, like he's just awesome. Eric is just such a dude, like always hanging out in our dressing room, like going out with us, coming to say hi. He ended up doing a little feature on Silence is Golden live because he liked that song, and he asked, he was like, can I do it? I was like, hell yeah, you can, of course. And then yeah, we just had various nights out where we ended up becoming like really, really good friends. And then we were like, we're writing a new album. If I sent you a song, would you potentially want to do a feature? And he was like, hell yeah, dude. And I was like, fuck yeah, let's do
That's awesome.
it.
I love that. So how has the reception been for the singles from I'd love to hear like from both new fans and old fans, of course.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, that's it's not a particularly interesting answer, unfortunately. The guys that like it love it, and you see comments being like, "Oh my God, this is the best thing ever. This is the best era of Trash Boat. I love it. It's the best sound." Blah blah blah. And then the people that don't like it, they just always say the same thing. They're like, "Yeah, it's all right. Crown Shyness was better," or "This sucks. Nothing I Write You was better. I miss the pop punk era." And it's like, cool. I can't do anything about it.
Yep.
I can't do anything about it, and I wouldn't if I could. Like it's not that I don't care about what people think about our music. Obviously, it's disappointing that people like something that we put out and don't like something else. But all I can do is write the best music possible and be proud of what I've created. And then once you hand an album out to the public, it's not yours anymore,
Yep.
and you can't control what people think. And if people want to voice their opinion, maybe they're secretly thinking, oh, if I talk enough smack about this new release and say how much I love the old stuff, maybe they'll go back to writing the old stuff.
Yep.
But like that, if we did end up going back to like a fast pop punk style, it wouldn't be because of these comments. It would be just because we're sharing riffs and we like those riffs. Like I don't take them too much to heart. Just like I don't let the positive ones like overinflate my ego. Oh, this is great. It's like I read that comment, I'm like, oh, that's really cool. I like that, but I'm not like, we are so good. It's one of
Yeah.
those things.
Yeah. I think people just got to understand that bands mature with age. Bands, will change their style once they get older. Uh, Life experiences, all that stuff. And again, like I said, bands don't want to be doing the same exact thing all the time.
Some bands,
Yeah.
and also like I personally wouldn't use the word mature. because I wouldn't want to I wouldn't want to suggest that our old stuff wasn't mature and that our new stuff is like elevated above
That's
it.
absolutely fair. Yeah.
I I have like a deep respect for everything that we've ever written
Okay.
because every step of the way we have we've had awesome fans, awesome shows, and everything's been sick. And I don't feel like we have matured past any specific era. I just feel like each era is awesome, and I love all of them, and I'm in love with this one as well. And yes, we have objectively matured, as in we have gotten older and uglier and had more experiences. But I think mature has to be used in like quite a specific context here, and not like the we have grown out of this certain thing
Right.
because it's bad and childish,
Mhm.
um, which I would completely disagree with. I love all albums that we've ever released, and every album. I mean, not the EPs anymore, but we include songs from all of the albums in our headline sets because we love it all.
Yeah. Awesome. So I'd like to talk a little bit about tour stuff coming up. Uh,
Mm.
you're going on a North American headliner in November with Downswing and Crooked Teeth.
Hmm.
Uh, what what are you guys pumped most for? Because again, this is the first North American headliner. Um, is there any spots you're looking specifically to playing or getting food or whatever?
Yeah. I mean, look, Chain Reaction is iconic. I'm looking forward to headlining Chain Reaction. That's literally going to be so cool. I
Yeah.
can't remember I think it's is it the Marquee in Toronto, whichever the or is that maybe that's in
Uh,
Ohio?
in
Got it written down.
Toronto, the Velvet Underground.
Velvet Underground, that's the
Yeah.
one. Very much looking forward to playing that because we've never had a bad show in Toronto,
Nice.
uh, Canada in general.
Yeah.
Food, that is a question for my bandmates. They are far more on the food side for them, but I mean the key to their heart is chicken wings, fried chicken. They love it,
Nice.
and they're like spicy fried chicken fans as well. So like there was a place, is that a Hattie Mae's or Hattie B's in Nashville?
Okay.
And there's they're like I think they put a Nashville date on the tour exclusively so they could go back to this chicken place.
Hmm.
But you know what, I'm a bit boring. I'm not a big foodie.
Fair.
Food is kind of sustenance for me. But yeah, in general, the reason why I'm in this band, the entire like feeling and whatever you want to call it that drives me, is a live show. That's why I do this. Like selling records and making money, all that kind of stuff. That's great. I want big fat stacks that touch the sky, and I want worldly possessions that tie me to this mortal shell. Can't wait. And of course, I want to be selling out fucking stadiums and tens of thousands of tickets. Awesome. But deep down in my heart and soul, I want to like leave absolutely everything on that stage, cut loose, provide energy that helps everyone in that room go absolutely bonkers and have like an experience they're going to remember for the rest of their lives. Climb on top of each other, sweat, mosh, sing lyrics, whatever. I want to gas people up, and then I want them in turn to gas me up, and then I want it to go absolutely, within the bounds of good taste and safety, go completely over the top. And so everyone can just have something akin to a religious experience at a show. I love it. It's the best feeling in the world.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you guys played some shows with Rise Against not too long ago. How was that?
We did, yeah. I mean, they were awesome. They're such a good band. And you know what? I never noticed that the singer of Rise Against has heterochromia.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
nice. The others literally never knew that until I met him in person. But no, we played with just like this random festival in Italy with them once because we'd done a bunch of festivals, and then it was one of those ones where like on the way home, we could because we were going to fly out of somewhere in Italy, and it's like we just play a Rise Against show the day before because we had the offer, and we were like, hell yeah, and we ended up smashing it. It was one of those shows where it's like most people aren't going to care; they're just going to wait for Rise Against
Yeah.
and blah blah blah. We came out on stage, they loved it. Like every step of the way, they went crazy, and we were like, "Oh hell yeah!" And then Rise Against obviously saw that and were like, "Okay." So they asked us to play these shows in the UK. And they were wicked, man. They were wicked. They're such a consistently good band. Everyone at that show went nuts, and yeah, they absolutely crush it live. And very very proud to have played that show.
Hell yeah. And yeah, Rise Against is awesome.
Hmm.
Just as the last general question before we wrap things up.
What's
Uh,
up?
What are some of your favorite shows you've ever played with Trash Boat, whether it be like big shows or just like a personal favorite?
My God, there's so many. Selling out the Underworld in Camden for the first time.
That's
Uh, I mean, it was an insane show, but that's one of those ones where no matter what happens, like if the band broke up tomorrow and everything crashed and burned, I know and I can be really, really proud of the fact that when I was like 15 years old, 14 years oldish, and I first knew that being in a band was going to be something that I seriously wanted to do, all of the shows that I were going to that were the craziest shows ever were at the Underworld in Camden. And I remember being sat like in school, being like, I don't care what happens. I don't care what we achieve as a band. If we ever sell out the Underworld and it's a crazy show, then I can die happy and I consider my career a success. We did that, and it was insane, which is a great feeling. Then the next show that we did was the next headline tour was in Islington Academy, which was like twice the size. That was absolutely insane. We headlined Jera on Air a year or two ago, one of the stages, which I thought was going to be really kind of tough because we were clashing with Papa Roach.
Mm.
But you couldn't get into the tent. You could not get into the tent. It was crazy. And that's probably the best European show we've ever played. And then the rest would just be like playing Alexandra Palace, playing Wembley, just like milestones where it's like you get to touch a really important stage with a crazy band and play a great show.
Yeah.
And I guess like the kind of sappy answer would be we supported Rome on their release tour for their second EP in like 2015 or something like that. And this is at a point where, we put out our first EP
Mhm.
and we had played a total of like 10, 15 shows as a band. And we were just kind of finding our feet and
Yep.
trying to find, bands to tour with and fans. And the second show of that tour was in Liverpool. And I don't know, there's maybe like 100, 150 people there, something like that. And we jumped on stage, and there was like maybe 10 people there that knew the words to our songs and were like moshing and climbing on top of each other. And it was literally the first time ever that I got on stage and had seen someone that was like excited to see us specifically and had learned the words, had been obviously listening to our EP loads. And I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. It's like we've been playing to standstill crowds for however long. And yeah, I'll never forget that show because I just remember feeling that vibe of people being really excited specifically to see us and knowing our lyrics. And I was like, oh my God, that's so cool.
That's awesome. All right, this is UMFM 101.5 Suburban Home. My name is Justin. That's Toby Duncan from Trash Boat. Check out their new album on Hopeless Records, October 4th. It's going to be a good one. The singles are awesome. And yeah,
Keep an eye out for the headline tour as well. Get those tickets now.
absolutely.
Trashboat.co.uk.
All right, have a good one.